Good morning. I'm glad to see that each and every one of you made the choice to be with us this morning. Indeed, your presence is a choice, and I believe it's a choice to be commended. Not everyone chose to be here this morning, but you did. And that means that you are here on purpose for a purpose. And the purpose we gather for is to worship. And as part of that worship, as we see from the pattern of Scripture, is to have a message from God's Word. And I'm honored to be able to lead us in that this morning. If you are visiting, a special greeting, a simple request. If you haven't done so in the past, would you take just a moment to fill out one of the yellow visitor cards and not only make your attendance known, but also if there's some way we could assist you, that you let us know that as well, and you can indicate that there on the card. And then when the collection plate comes around here at the appropriate time, you can place that there, or you can put that in the wooden box to your left as you exit. I also wanted to mention that we offer a service for those of you as parents who want to take advantage of it. For children that are between the ages of 2 and 5, they can be dismissed and they'll have a lesson geared towards their age group. They'll be directed and led by a teacher to a classroom just to your left as you exit, and there they can have a lesson that's geared for them, and you can hopefully be undistracted and be able to pay attention to the lesson that's been prepared for you. And that's where I come in. And so I'm excited this morning to look at the lesson. Now, if you look ahead in the bulletin and you saw the title and you paid attention to the reading, you're like, oh, I know this. So I find the daunting task of preaching a simple lesson from a familiar passage, but I'm going to do it anyhow. I believe that this, although it's known, is not applied as consistently as we ought. I'm not speaking French. I'm talking about all of us. And I'm talking about the golden rule. And the golden rule, although it's probably known and many of us can quote it, I think that we could all exercise some reminder so that we could implement it more consistently. I think that's warranted. So the golden rule is very simple. It just basically says, whatever you want men to do to you, do also to them. And so let's talk about that by noting first, what is this golden rule? Well, I already quoted the verse. There's two, and they're very similar, and it's Matthew 7 where we had our reading, and then another occasion in Luke 6 and verse 31 where they both say about the same thing. Whatever you want men to do to you, do also to them. Simply stated, this golden rule, and you might be wondering, well, how come you call it the golden rule? It ain't called the golden rule in the Bible. You're right. I didn't come up with that term. In fact, it was a term that came up from the best of my research. By research, I mean I Googled it. Young people, that's not technically research, but that's another thing for another day. But around the 1700s, some renowned and known preachers started calling this the golden rule, and that just kind of stuck. But it's this simple instruction, whatever you want men to do to you, do also to them. And it's the philosophy of treating other people. Whether these people are strangers and foreigners to you, we find these instructions going way back. For example, in Exodus chapter 23 and verse 9, listen to the instructions that's given to the children of Israel. They're told, do not oppress a stranger. Listen, for you know the heart of a stranger, for you were once strangers in the land of Egypt. What's he saying? You know what it's like. You know how you want to be treated when you were a stranger in a foreign land. So you find somebody that's a stranger in a foreign land now, you treat them the way you would want to be treated. That's pretty simple. It also applies to those of the faith. Think about James 2 and verse 15, for example. The idea that you see someone who is destitute, that they're without. They don't have the daily provisions. They can't pay the bills. They can't put food on the table. Well, in the context, the fellow who finds out this information about a brother says, God bless. Well, he didn't say exactly that, but be warm and filled and go in peace. Well, that's a nice greeting and all, but I'm still hungry, right? And the idea is, what would you want somebody to do to you if you couldn't pay your bills and you couldn't eat and they were a brother? What would you want them to do for you? Would just say a prayer or bring a bag of groceries? So that's the gist of this philosophy of treating other people. And it's very similar to other instructions, namely that you're to love your neighbor as or like you love yourself. We find those express instructions in both the Old Testament and the New Testament, that you ought to love your neighbors yourself. Now, in Leviticus 19, it again is talking about those strangers. If there's a stranger among you, love them as you love yourself. For you were once a stranger in the land of Egypt. You ought to know how that feels. You sympathize with the heart of a stranger. You've been in that predicament yourself. Love your neighbor like you would love yourself. Okay, so that's the gist of what it is. Super simple. What are some things that it requires to carry out? Or to, look, listen, there's a grave distinction between a philosophy and something you actually adhere to and implement and do. We might have all kinds of philosophies, but there's a great chasm between adopting the philosophy, in mindset, and doing the philosophy. So what does it require? It's going to require that love, to love your neighbor as yourself. To basically say, how do I view the various relationships I have with people that are, maybe outside my immediate family? Do you love your immediate family? Well, everybody's going to say, yeah, I love my spouse and I love my children, etc. But going beyond that, if you're going to actually, this notion of, whatever you want mankind, people out in the world, just people in general, whatever you want men to do to you, you also do to them. It's going to take some love. You're going to have to love. But it's also going to require some priority. We've mentioned this verse often, but in Philippians chapter 2, there's this reminder that we ought to esteem the interest of others and not look out only for our own interest. So I'm going to have to prioritize others. Now, I've said this a bunch. I'm guilty of saying stuff over and over again. Because if I find that I like it, until I find something better to say along the same lines, I keep saying the same thing. So one of the things I always say is, the philosophy of a Christian is, I'm number 3. I've never seen anybody cheer, I'm number 3. I'm number 3. Now, we had the Final Four not that long ago. I know who number 1 was. I know who number 2 was. We'd have to argue over who number 3 was, but in a few years we'll forget who number 3 was. But the ideas of this priority is, I put God first. Who goes in second position? Others. And then who goes in third position? Me. I'm number 3. Yeehaw! It would make for a T-shirt we could make, and then everybody would say, that's peculiar. But it requires a priority. If I'm going to do that, then it's going to require love and priority. And this is the hardest one. It's going to require some personal commitment. What do I mean by that? Here's how my flesh takes this verse and redefines it, reframes it. My flesh wants to say, whatever men do to you, do also to them. Now, that's not the quote. So the idea is, whatever people do to you, you do to them. Are they ugly to you? You be ugly to them. Are they nice to you? Be nice to them. Are they kind and patient and understanding and respectful of you? Then you be kind and patient and respectful of them. Are they disrespectful and unkind? Well, then I'll just give that right back. Whatever men do to you, you do that to them. That's how my flesh wants to interpret it, because that's, pretty easy. But that key phrase, whatever you want men to do to you, that's what you ought to do to them. But I get hung up on that sometimes. I find that often in marriage counseling. That the idea of doing what I'm supposed to do in the marriage is predicated on my spouse doing what they're supposed to do in the marriage. Y'all with me? And so it's like, well, what are you doing? You're not holding your end of the bargain, so I'm certainly not going to have this commitment to do the right thing. Now, I want men to treat me kindly and decently and with respect and understanding and forgiveness and a whole host of other things. But if they don't, you know what I got to do? I got to treat them the way I'd want them to treat me, even though they don't. That's the biggest difficulty. That's the biggest disconnect between us consistently applying this golden rule. Well, I want them to do that, but they don't. I want my spouse, for example, to do this, but they don't, but I'm still going to do what I want them to do, how I want them to treat me. In John chapter 21, there's that familiar verse where, well, Peter inquires of what the Lord's going to do with John. He says, what's that to you? You follow me. Well, you mean if I apply this golden rule that other people aren't going to reciprocate that and have that same philosophy? Yeah, that's right. Most folks don't adopt this philosophy. They adopt the philosophy of, hey, whatever you do to me, I'll do to you. Versus that caveat. Whatever you want men to do. And I'll have more to say about this when we get to some application in just a moment. So what is it going to require of me? You know, it's going to require me love and prioritizing properly and personal commitment, independent of how other people receive it or what they do. And it also requires action. Whatever you want men to do. Well, you know, we're to love in not word and tongue, but in deed. As we have opportunity, we're to do good. We're to let our good works be seen, that it might glorify our Father who's in heaven as we let our light shine. We're to follow in the example of Jesus. In Acts 10 and verse 38, it says, He went about doing good. It requires doing. Whatever you want men to do to you. We might ask the question, well, let's suppose I start doing that. Let's suppose I move from philosophy to implementation. What's in it for me? That's a fair question. That's not some kind of irreverent question. It allows you to be pleasing to God. Now, is everybody going to look at that as some virtuous thing? No, some people will, think you're milquetoast and, think you're weak, and they'll look at it as a vice instead of a virtue to treat people the way you'd want to be treated when they don't reciprocate it. But it's pleasing to God. Paul said on one occasion in 2 Corinthians 5 and verse 9, we always make it our aim to be pleasing to God. I think about another occasion that's probably pretty familiar to us. It's Matthew 25, where Jesus praises an individual and tells him, well done, thy good and faithful servant. You believed me when I told you what to do, and you did it, and now I can come back and say, good job. I'm proud of you. Way to go. So we can be pleasing to God. It also can have some benefits. It can produce peace. Peace in various relationships, whether it's home or beyond. When our ways please the Lord, even our enemies are at peace with us, the Proverbs say. But in Romans chapter 12 and verse 18, there's this reminder that as much as depends on me, as much as depends on you, that we can live peaceable with others and that we can pursue the things that make for peace. If everybody adopted this philosophy, what would it look like down at your work? What would it look like in your home? What would it look like in your community or your neighborhood? It allows us to glorify God. I already alluded to these verses. That they see your good works, your charitable deeds, because you've let your light shine, and then they say, boy, oh boy, you sure are a nice fella. No, the idea is I'm just carrying out the instructions and directives of Jesus. I think if you act like Jesus, folks will know you're acting like Jesus and not like, just yourself. And so it allows us to glorify God. And in like fashion, it allows us to stand out. Do most folks do this with any consistency, or maybe even ever? Can I ask you a question? Does anyone extrapolate naturally the golden rule? Is it just something that comes with our DNA? Do you just say, leave a child alone, never teach them this, never raise them, and when they get old, you know what they'll do? Well, they'll do unto others as they desire be done to them consistently. No, they take that one, I'll do to people they do to me. If you're nice to me, I'll be nice to you. If you're mean to me, I'll be mean to you. You slap me, I'll slap you back, right? It allows us to stand out. All right, now, that's the lesson, basically. Although I do want to go through some simple application and think about it. Now, we've laid some groundwork for the philosophy and talked about some of the benefits and requirements, but let's mention some specific application. I have 2 slides, going to go through them quickly. It'll be simple. I'm going to start with the negative because I want to finish with the positive as well. All right, so let's think about some simple application. Whatever you want men to do to you, do also to them. Well, let's think about it when it comes to gossip. Whatever you want men to do you, do you want folks to talk about you behind your back? Raise your hand. Have you ever found out somebody was talking about you behind your back and you were privy to the particulars? How did it make you feel? Whatever you want men to do to you, do also to them. I don't want them to gossip, talk about me behind my back. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to talk about them and gossip about them behind their back. Yeah, but they might keep doing it. Yes, they might keep doing it. But what am I supposed to do? Well, whatever I want men to do to me, I'm going to do to them, even if they don't reciprocate it. I can't go around gossiping because I don't want people gossiping about me because they've done it, and I didn't like it. It hurt. Well, what about lying? Well, you ever had someone tell a lie on you or impacted you? You know, we're reminded that we ought not lie to one another, that we put off lying. Colossians chapter 3 reminds us, and many other occasions that we're reminded about this. Whatever I want men to do, I don't want people to lie to me. So what does that mean I got to do? I can't lie to them. I might be tempted, there might be the propensity, there might be the occasion, but I don't want people lying to me. Can't stand it. So what does that mean in the golden rule? I can't lie about them. Lie to them. Lie on them. What about being cheated? Have you ever been cheated? Somebody deceived you, sold you something under false pretenses. You got caught in a scam. Somebody told you something. Anybody? No, don't raise your hand. I know you don't want to raise our hand to that one. But I know that this happens. I know it's happened to me. And then again, along the same lines, have you ever had somebody steal from you? I can remember the first time someone stole something that stands out. I mean, I remember stuff as kids. But I remember somebody broke in my car and stole, what at the time, beside maybe my wife, was one of the most valuable things I had. They stole my golf clubs. And I don't know about if you know anything about golf, but I ain't got extra golf clubs. You put all your money in that, and I was young in my 20s, and I'd spent some money on, saved up some money, got some tax returns, I invested. Somebody stole my golf clubs out of my car. I didn't like the way that felt. So if I don't want somebody stealing from me, what does that mean in the golden rule? I don't steal from them. I mean, would you like your employer to steal some money out your check? Well, no. You stealing office supplies? Okay, just checking. It's on. I don't want people to steal from me, so what does that mean? I don't steal from them. I don't cheat them. They've done me wrong. They've deceived me. This has happened. Well, what do? Get even? No. My flesh would like to. I promise it would. You cheated me. No, but the golden rule says, I don't want those things to happen to me, so I don't do those to other people. What about coveting? There's the caution against coveting things that are your neighbors. And it could be material things, or it could be your neighbor's spouse even. Don't covet that. Simple principle. I don't want nobody checking out my wife. So what's that mean for me? I better not be checking out nobody else's wife. Y'all with me? It's the golden rule. It doesn't say whatever men do to you, do to them. It says, hey, look, whatever you want men to do to you, do also to them. What would you want? Do you want to be cheated or gossiped on or lied to or have someone covet your stuff or steal from you? Well, of course not. Well, then we can't do those things. All right, I told you I'd finish on the positive. Same gist. We've looked at the philosophy, simple stuff. Here's some more simple application from the positive aspect. Then we're done. What about helping? What about helping? We could point out plenty of verses in the New Testament. We've already alluded to some. For instance, Galatians 6 and verse 10. We have opportunity, do good to all, especially those of the household of faith. But I just like this one. It's Exodus 23 and it's verse 4 and 5. And I'll give you the gist of it. If your neighbor has an ox or a donkey and it goes away, goes stray, runs off, help your neighbor find it. In fact, what's interesting about the passage is it doesn't say neighbor. It says enemy. And it goes on the next verse to say, if you find your neighbor's ox or donkey that is weighed down or fallen over because of the burden, other verses say if they're in the ditch. But if the ox or the donkey of your neighbor is in a ditch, and it's not neighbor, it's enemy. If they're in a ditch, you go help the animal out. I don't want to help my enemy. That guy gossiped on me. That guy told me a lie. That guy deceived me and cheated me one time. Yeah, but what would you want if it was your donkey or your ox that was gone astray and now on their property? What would you want them to do? Keep it, hide it, steal it, kill it and eat it? If it was in a ditch, would you want your neighbor to just let it fend for itself, or would you want your neighbor to do that? And you might be thinking right about now, I ain't got a donkey or an ox. Do you have a car? You ever had to have your neighbor jump you off with some jumper cables because your battery ran down? I remember I had to do that one time. It knocked on my neighbor's door and said, hey, man, my truck, the battery had died, and Sarah was already gone with the car doing another errand. And I knocked on the door and said, hey, man, I got jumper cables. Can you jump me off? Yeah. You know why he said yes? I'm not sure, but I think because I'd done that for him too. And so the idea was whatever you want people to do for you, do for them. Help. What about encouragement? Haven't we all at some point been in need of a comforting word or some encouragement or a pat on the back or a cheerleader to say it's going to be okay? I mean, we all have. And we're supposed to encourage one another and stir one another up for love and good works. Well, whatever you want men to do to you, haven't there been times where you just needed that encouragement and then you got it? Well, if we want that from other people, then we give it. Well, have you ever been times in your life where you needed that encouragement and it came from nowhere? Sure. But you would want it for yourself, wouldn't you? Well, if you want it for yourself, then you ought to give it to other people, whether it's encouragement or help or love. I already mentioned the verse. 1 John 3 and verse 18 says, we're not to love in word and tongue, but in deed and truth. Do you want people to show you love? Or just tell you, hey, I love you. Be warm and filled and go in peace. I'm out. Right? Or do you want people to demonstrate, exhibit, and do loving things? We all do. We want to receive that. We want to receive it. That means, according to this rule, we have to do it. What about visiting or serving? Again, kind of along the lines of helping. You might recall the occasion where Jesus talked about returning with his holy angels in the glory of his Father and finding two groups of people, separating them like you would separate sheep and goat. And in doing that, he distinguishes the two groups. You remember? The one group was when they saw me and I was hungry, thirsty, sick, or in prison. And what did they do? They gave me something to eat, they gave me something to drink, and they came and visited me. Support, encouragement, help. And of course, their response was, well, when did we see you like that? And he said, as you know, whatever you did to the least of these, you did to me. And what was the idea? The idea was, hey, man, if I'm sick, a phone call, a comforting card, a visit, some homemade soup, or whatever. If I'm in need of these things, I'm in the hospital, well, I'd want folks to come visit me. So what does that mean for the golden rule? Then I ought to go visit. I ought to help when people are sick, in need. Yogi Berra once said, if you don't go to other people's funeral, then they won't go to yours. If you didn't laugh with the other people, you'll think about it on the way home. But the idea is that you want people to serve, to help, to visit, to comfort you if you have need. So what does that mean? Well, then you do it. Yeah, but when I was sick, they didn't come visit me. Nobody called me. Nobody gave me a card. When I needed help, nobody was there. How'd that feel? Okay. Then you apply the golden rule. The whole disconnect is we evaluate how people have performed in this arena in our lives, and then we apply that much performance. Y'all with me? But the idea is, independent of how you've been received when you needed it, you have the obligation to be the one that disseminates it. What about forgiveness? I won't ask you to raise your hand on this one either. Have you ever done something regrettable, foolish, said something you wish you could take back, done something to hurt someone's feelings, done something that, you wish if there was a time machine you could go back and undo it? Sure, we all have. Have you ever been in the need of forgiveness from another? Of course, we all have. And if we wanted that from other people, what does that mean from the golden rule? Then we should extend that forgiveness to other people. Because we know, hey, I've put my foot in my mouth. I've done things I wish I wouldn't have. I've forgotten things I should have remembered. And we could just go down the list of shortcomings. And I've been in the need of someone else to just kind of forgive that and start over and draw a line in the sand and say, hey, I know you're not perfect. We're good. Then I need to extend that same effort. But what if I didn't receive it like I thought or ought in my estimation? You mean I still got to extend that? Yeah. Because what you want men to do to you, you do. Even if they didn't do it. That's the power of this golden rule. I'm thankful somebody shared the gospel with me. I didn't even know how much I needed or wanted that. But someone did share the gospel with me. And I believed and accepted it, and I rendered obedience to it, and I became a Christian. Whatever you want men to do to you, you do also to them. And so I extend to you the invitation that was extended to me, that I was a sinner in need of a Savior, and that God sent His Son to accomplish that by His atoning death on the cross. And if you believe that, you can confess it, turn from your sins, and be baptized for the remission of your sins. So maybe you're subject to that invitation this morning, or maybe for some other reason you're subject to the invitation. If so, we want to encourage you to come while together we stand and sing.